Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of ParaMindful. I'm your co-host, Melba Collins. Over there is Alex the Werewolf, and down there is the gold standard, Carl Carufel. Gentlemen, how are you doing today?
I'm awesome.
I worked a hellish shift today, but I'm
Oh.
here. But I'm here.
We're here. We're here. We're loud. Alex is having technical difficulties as per usual. Wouldn't be an episode of ParaMindful if we didn't have technical difficulties, which is why Melball is in the basement today and not in her usual space.
The ultimate in difficulties.
What's that?
The ultimate in difficulties.
It couldn't be really any more difficult if it tried, and I don't want to give it the challenge.
She was creating a swimming pool in her top floor.
Yeah, apparently you should do that. Not plan ahead a bit more and maybe put it in the hole in the backyard instead of in your spare room closet. Choices were made. It is what it is, but now we've got fans upstairs just noisily drying off my place, and it is ridiculously hot out, and it's making it even hotter, so that's even better for me to be in the basement. That being said, we have an exciting episode here for you guys this week. We are going to be talking about a legendary cryptid that probably everybody knows about, and that is known by many a name, mostly in North America as, I believe, Sasquatch.
Oh, hey, Buzz, man, are you watching this documentary Saskatchewans? It's Sam Squam Shrekky, and there's one right outside my fucking door right now. He's trying to get into my shed.
The Bigfoot stories have been something that I have heard about since I was a child. I'm sure you guys have also encountered stories growing up or fascinations with the Bigfoot here. What do you think, Carl?
I've never talked to anybody who has actually seen or experienced at all.
Interesting.
So, yeah.
Interesting. Especially considering Alex has a story about it close to where you're from. Alex, have you ever had any kind of encounters or heard anyone talk about that?
I have not. It is one of those things that's like on my bucket list that I can't achieve on my own. It's like the stars have to align, but I've always wanted to. I've always believed. But no, I never witnessed anything myself. So.
Yeah. I myself have also never personally seen it myself, but I certainly, I've lived in several areas that had heavily wooded areas. And, you hear stuff, you never know if it's a bobcat or a wolf or a bear or a giant, hairy, bipedal thing.
Right?
That being said, I'm going to kick things off here with my little story because we don't have a ton of information, but we do have some conversations that could come out of this one. So my story actually comes from a town called Hickory in North Carolina. The story is about a guy named Doug Tagoo and his fun little dog, Crazy Daisy, as he likes to call her, went for a walk in the woods near Hickory, and Doug kind of heard some knocks start going. His dog was starting to get a little uneasy, a little anxious, staying on the pathway as opposed to deviating off into the woods like she usually does. He thought that the knocking was initially just a woodpecker, as they're, pretty prolific in the area. But he came across a dark figure that was hunched down behind a stump. And it kind of, as he said, as an animal enthusiast, he said it looked like a silverback gorilla, just kind of sitting on the ground behind a stump, moving its head around, doing something. It had no care to whatever Doug and his dog were doing. Something that I had noted about the story, though, is that the dog wasn't barking. It was just staying on the path, which I find very suspicious a little bit especially with labs. Labrador retrievers have a tendency to be that high energy and high alert kind of animal, as they're usually used for like service animals or in canine police and stuff like that. So that this dog wasn't losing its mind. And when I say that, I say that because he did film it. He filmed what he saw. He saw it moving kind of around there, and
Right.
you can hear on the audio he's talking to the dog, but the dog is not making any noise. So that to me was kind of like a little weird at first, but continuing on, he did say that he noticed as he continued his walk past this creature, he noticed rocks were being thrown at him, and not like tiny little pebbles of a rock. He said they were sizable to a volleyball that were
Shit.
being tossed around him. Not, he didn't say that he felt threatened by the rocks. He said it kind of almost felt like a warning, as a don't get too much more close kind of.
Where was this again?
Hickory, North Carolina.
North Carolina. I'm legit gonna look at that video, and then if I can find it in
I
like
can send it to you.
but like a good enough quality, I'll put it in if I can,
I
depending
can
on.
send it to you.
Yeah, cool.
So, the area of Hickory actually has. Oh, sorry. The other thing besides the rocks being tossed at him, he heard very very loud, seemingly aggressive sounding grunts that were coming from the area where he had spotted the thing kind of hunched behind the stump. So something that in this particular area, they kind of had like an urban legend about 40 years prior. This took place in 1997, I believe. 96, 97. So the area of Hickory had this urban legend that of a bipedal furry person. They didn't call it a Sasquatch. They actually called him Nobby. So like Dobby, but with an N. I was like, well, maybe someone threw a sock at him and he just disappeared for a little while. I don't know.
So, question before in North Carolina, are they still referred to as Sasquatch, or are they still just Bigfoot? Because I thought Sasquatch was ours. Am I like, I don't know if I'm wrong or not. I don't remember. Like,
He was calling it Bigfoot.
okay, because I was gonna say, isn't Sasquatch like a
I'm using it because that's what I usually call it.
I just wanted to, like, just in case somebody knows something out there that we don't know, and there's more than one I
Like
guess,
terminology for
race of, you know what I mean?
Wow.
Like maybe the ones in
Yeah.
Vancouver are Sasquatch, and you know what I mean? So just in case, cover all bases. Continue.
For sure.
I didn't mean to cut you off.
We don't
there.
want to offend the Bigfoot. We offend enough people on a regular basis. We don't want to offend the Bigfoot.
You're not wrong.
So yeah, again, they had that creature in their area that they called Nobby, who was spotted rather frequently 40 years prior, and then just kind of disappeared either from memory or from the area. They don't really know, but what Doug was actually a Bigfoot enthusiast. So when he took Daisy home after the incident, he actually went back to the area and actually found several footprints that were around the stump. And he took several casts of them and sent them to a gentleman named Cliff Brockman, who studies the casts of big feet. And he said that the cast that Doug took was actually very comparable to multiple different casts of Bigfoot that have been found throughout America. So he felt that the cast that Doug had given him was actual proof that he had actually run into a legit Bigfoot. What else do I have here? Oh, so then they also talked to an anthropologist and forensics anthropologist who observed where the casts were found. And according to Doug, the distance between footprints was approximately 6 feet, which is a little baffling because according to the anthropologist, that would make the creature between 12 and 14 feet tall. And Doug said that the creature he thought might have been approximately 8 feet tall. So that kind of like, a Mel Ball's not good at math. But like to a Mel Ball, the math does not.
But you said that he only saw him kind of like crouched behind a rock. Did he see him standing up though, or?
He was crouched behind a stump.
Right, but
And she also saw the video also, and she also guesstimated that it would probably be between 7 to 9 feet as well.
Right, but they didn't see him standing up though, right?
Correct.
So there's still the possibility that.
Absolutely. She made the guesstimate based on the approximation of the stump and all that, because he did like measure the stump and everything, and she.
Right. I was just wondering if maybe they got like extra long legs and like a large torso, or vice versa, whatever the math would add up to,
Right.
I mean, it's also possible that it was Doug had to leave the area and come back. It's possible that, maybe something else encountered the same creature and it got startled. Maybe it started running.
That's also possible too. Yeah.
Yeah, I just thought of that. No,
Yeah.
Melville's sometimes smart.
I am the smart. I am the smart. S-M-R-T. I mean S-M-A-R-T.
Shut up! You're always smart.
So yeah, that was kind of what she said. She said that she did not feel that the evidence that was provided was conclusive or inconclusive of what the creature was. She said based on the video, it did look like a gorilla.
See my vest made from real gorilla chest.
Like it had a stance of how a silverback gorilla would be sitting there and just kind of minding his business and eating his stuff or picking fleas or whatever it is that he does. And so, yeah, she said that according to her, the evidence was a little inconclusive. But again, she said the math didn't really add up based on what she was presented with. Carl, what do you think about that?
I got a couple of questions.
Oh, go ahead.
Are there gorillas in North Kakalaki?
I'm going to assume not. I'm going to assume that if there is, it's an escaped one.
Right.
But I didn't see anything that would suggest that at that time there was an escaped gorilla from any zoo that would be in that area.
And if there was, I would figure that it would probably be a lot more angry and aggressive
Yeah,
than
absolutely.
just sitting there.
Absolutely. Gorillas are very, very territorial, especially
Yeah.
having a dog there.
The only like videos I've ever seen of silverbacks are like when people take kind of like the tours that they shouldn't take in like wherever, like the Congo. But like
Yeah.
every once in a while, you'll see them just kind of like blaze at you, kind of like right, and then they'll stop. But like they're always aware, I guess.
Yeah.
Yes, very much so, very much so. I actually saw a video the other day of a gorilla, a male gorilla. There was a film crew filming the gorilla and its colony. I think that's what it's called. And the gorilla just, for whatever reason, he just got up, casually walks over to one guy, grabs him by his pant leg, and just drags him for about 6 feet, and then just lets go of him and just walks on. And it's like, that is a calm reminder that when you F around,
that's a big boy.
you're gonna find out. The
Yeah.
look on this man's face, I think he thought that he was probably gonna die.
How much does a gorilla
Mercifully,
weigh?
he let him go and live another day.
I mean,
Either way, you don't want to mess around and find out. But in regards to like the Bigfoot here, if that's what that creature was, and it was between 8 feet or 12 feet, I mean, that thing's gonna mess you up. Doug is lucky he was not trying to hit him with those boulders.
Right.
Yeah.
So now you mentioned Doug and you mentioned Daisy.
Mhm.
So on the video, I got two questions for you about the video. So
For sure.
first, did any of the grunts that Doug heard get caught on the video's audio?
I
and-
believe so.
Okay.
Yes.
And then
'cause
you
there was
said
a
that-
chunk later that actually was just grunts.
Okay.
Yeah,
And then you said that Doug was actually talking to Daisy.
correct.
Was Daisy like acknowledging Doug? 'Cause you know how
it
like a
sounds
dog will kind of like turn its head or whatever, start wagging its
So
tail.
Daisy was never actually on camera.
Okay.
It was just told that she was a black lab.
Okay.
But you could hear him go, Daisy, no, come here, Daisy. And then you could hear the rustling of her coming back to him, but you couldn't
Okay.
actually see her. And again, you couldn't hear her, which I did find very suspicious. If dogs are especially attuned, I mean, I have a Chihuahua who barks at a leaf blowing through the yard. So, like, if they see or sense, because their senses are better than ours,
Yeah.
I would assume she would sense it before Doug would have sensed it. But she did stay on the path.
I got a theory about that.
What's that?
Have you guys heard that they think one of the theories is that Bigfoot or Big Feet or Sasquatch or whoever has ESP, like his ability has the ability to speak via brain as opposed to
He's like Craven the Hunter now.
no, but like maybe it was able to talk to the dog. I don't know. This is very far fetched, but you know what I mean? Like maybe he
if
could
it
talk to a dog.
is-
Listen, I'm not here to mess you guys up. I'm just I'm just chilling, you know. I don't know.
Yeah.
Also, a gorilla, the average weight of a gorilla is about 400 pounds of a silverback.
Dang.
Yeah, I was expecting far more, to be honest with
Yeah,
you.
me too.
And
That's still hefty.
yeah, no, absolutely. But female gorillas, oh, that's awful. The female gorillas weigh 200 pounds. I weigh more
Well, I
than a female
mean,
gorilla.
we're usually a little bit more dainty than you guys.
Jeez.
I missed that memo, but yeah, it it definitely raises some eyebrows, doesn't
Yeah.
it?
Yeah.
This whole thing, because again, like if there is a possibility, I mean, they've been living out in the woods hypothetically for so long. If they do exist, maybe it is possible that one of or all of them have developed this
Yeah.
kind of adaptation to their surroundings.
Right. I
Yeah.
kind of I look at it so very much like a skeptic. Like I've said it many times before. I'm a Sculiever, a skeptical believer. But like I look at these, and I don't doubt that maybe they saw something. But I always look at it and I'm like, man, that doesn't make a lot of sense to me. It kind of seems very bizarre.
Mhm.
And the dog is like the linchpin for me because, like you said, they usually go batshit crazy if somebody enters a yard, let alone a giant bipedal hominid type furry dude. You know, I don't know.
Sitting there eating its grubs. Yeah.
Yeah, right. So
Yeah. Very suspicious on that one.
suspicious.
Don't be suspicious. Don't be suspicious. So from here, we're going to move on to Alex's story. Alex, what have you got to tell us about Signore Bigfoot?
Well, you had mentioned something about that anthropologist
Mhm.
in your story and how its positioning and all that stuff reminded her of a primate. I assume it was her. I heard her. Was I correct? Was it
Correct.
female? Yeah. Okay. Cool. I only say that because that's part of my story plays into that. It's very, very bizarre. So I chose a story about a Bigfoot is actually Sasquatch because it's Canadian in northern Ontario. So that's, what did you say, Carl? 12 hours away from you?
So you're going to be Eastern Ontario.
Yeah.
I'm in Northern Ontario,
Gotcha.
and your story comes from like 12 to 14 hours away.
Gotcha. So this story is from Snellgrove Lake, which is 250 miles north of Ottawa. Or if you're a Canuck or anywhere else in the world and you're not a American or one of the, there's another country in the Middle East, I think, whatever. That's 400 kilometers. So there's a guy named Scott Mosbeck or Mosbeck. Can't really be for sure what that one is, but he has a cabin, and it's a one single cabin that he rents out, and it's in the most remote part of Ontario. You can't get to it by vehicles or snowmobiles or by walk. Well, I mean, technically speaking, walking, but it would take you a long time. You need to get a float plane in there, which is kind of cool, which makes this all the more real or plausible, I suppose. So there's two occurrences to this one, and the first occurrence was Scott went to go check on his cabin, and he found that it had been completely thrashed, like door kicked open. Excuse me, door kicked open, sinks ripped off the wall, cabinets open, and then shelves pulled out. And he had filmed it and taken a bunch of pictures and stuff, and he was kind of curious because of the time of year. So he happened to have contact with a, what do they call it? It was a wildlife biologist, and her name was Lynn Rogers. And she ruled out bears because there's only black bears up in that area, apparently. But also, they're supposed to be hibernating, so they wouldn't do that. They wouldn't have the energy for that. So, which I find very interesting. So fixed up the cabin, all that stuff, and he decided to put in screw boards. And I don't know if you guys know what screw boards are. Effectively, it's exactly what it is. It's a 1-inch board with a whole bunch of screws sticking out. And what they do is they screw that board then to stairs of cabins that are in the middle of the woods to basically prevent bears, because bears will put their paw on it and it'll poke them. They won't want to walk on it.
Mm.
So that's what he did. He came back the following spring, so a couple months later, and found that his house had been ransacked again, but there was blood and tissue and fur on this board, which I thought was very interesting, but could have been a bear, right? You never know. So he had contacted some people, and he had brought up a couple biologists who happen to be into big feet as well, Sasquatch, mini Sasquatch, whatever.
Sasquatch-eye?
Sasquatch. This is the weird part. So they collected samples. They collected samples of hair. They collected samples of the tissue that was on the screws, as well as the blood that was on the board. And obviously they didn't leave that same day because they'd just flown in. So they spent a few days there, and they had some experiences. And one of them was in the middle of the night, a giant rock. They said it was a small to medium-sized rock, so very much like your volleyball-sized rock, landed on the roof. And so the next morning or whatever, they went and they saw that it was this rock and it was on the roof. They're like, what in nature can throw a rock besides something with an opposable thumb, right? Like, think about that for just that alone for a second, just kind of like screwed with my head. So they took the rock, threw it back in the bush. The next night, a whole bunch of rocks start flying at the roof, a whole bunch of noises in the forest, a whole bunch of like growls and grunts and banging and stuff. Anyways, they get the hell out of Dodge the next morning, and they have this stuff tested. Now, this is a bone of contention for many people, but there was a study done by a DNA specialist named Melba Ketchum, and she took DNA samples. People sent DNA samples from all over the world to this lady who ran her own independent DNA lab, and she had found that the DNA for some of them obviously was written out from bears and raccoons and all sorts of stuff, but then she found some, including this one, that were, it was one, what's the word? There's one portion that is off from being a human, but one portion being off from being a primate. So she's like, this is her quote. She said it was, she tested the DNA, or the mitochondrial DNA, and there were no known matches. However, the DNA came up primate, but not exactly human, and not exactly human primate. So what she said was the mitochondrial DNA came up being, the human portion came up being female, and then the male portion of the chromosomes or whatever came up unknown, effectively pointing towards the idea that it's something we have not yet identified, coded yet. So that's what I found very interesting. And there's lots of people who have picked apart Melba Ketchum and, why would she be doing this? Why would she put... The thing is that she did a study for a long time. This was like a 5 years in the making kind of thing. And nobody wanted to take her seriously. So she had to basically publish her own papers on it, which kind of invalidates the fact that it was done scientifically, which is the problem that we have here, because she posted her own stuff and it was scientifically like researched by her and her people, because nobody else would spend their time doing it. So how would you get the information out? But now, how do you prove that it wasn't you guys messing it up, right? So,
yeah.
Anyways, I thought that was really cool, because you had mentioned that the anthropologist had said it was very similar to a primate, and I was like, well, this is kind of interesting. And then the rocks, I do believe, happens very often, but I'm pretty sure it's going to play into what Carl has to say. So, anyways, that was all I had. I mean, the story kind of goes on to like little nuances and things of like the stuff they heard that night, but we only have an hour to do this. So. But yeah, if you are interested in ever like researching further on the story, it is again Snellgrove Lake, and the guy's name was Scott Mosbeck. So pretty cool. And this, I
Interesting.
should say, this happened in early 2000s. So
Okay.
yeah,
Something that the woman in the story that I did, she did say that bears do have the capability. It's just not possible for them to yeet them onto roofs.
yes, right.
Like she said that they can kind of squeeze their
Yeah,
paws together and
but they're not shot putters, right? You know what I mean? Like their arms
no,
are
no,
not
not
long.
by any
They're
means.
not like trebuchets like our arms. The other
Hmm.
thing is to throw it, you would have to go overhand, and
Yeah.
bears don't go
They
back.
don't have that range of motion.
Because I had read about that. I was like, well, maybe, but then it was the opposable thumb thing to be able to grab a large rock
Mhm.
and to be able to
Right.
toss it, right? So
Then the question becomes, why were they continuously ransacking the house? Like I understand it's a foreign thing, it's in their stuff, but like
yes.
if the people in the cabin aren't threatening them,
There's
why?
there's a theory. So it was the first time that that cabin had been open, like that he had opened it, and it was all completely built and everything. And then he came back and it was thrashed, right? So
Mhm.
their theory, so Scott's, there were two scientists that went up with him. I didn't remember what their names. I didn't think it was important, but maybe it was, and I apologize for that. But their theory was that it was, hey, you know what? You're in our territory now. We don't like you here. Please leave, because Lord knows how long they've been there, right?
Mhm.
Nobody's been up there because you need a float plane to get up there, right? So
That's true.
that
That's
was
true.
that
There's
was
some areas we probably shouldn't go.
that was their theory. I don't obviously have an answer for that, but that was their theory, was that they had kind of encroached on their space,
Mhm.
and the sound of the airplane coming in and not leaving for a while, maybe that pissed them off. I'm not sure. So who knows?
Oh, so they flew the plane in and left it there?
No, so they flew it in to like obviously here and there to build this cabin, and then they
Mhm.
flew it in, and they had stayed there for a while in this cabin. They flew away, but when they came in and checked it, it was thrashed, so they rebuilt it all. Then they
Mhm.
flew back and they came back, and then it was all thrashed again with the board and everything like that. Yeah.
Mhm.
So I should have mentioned that first. There was an initial stay at that cabin. So
Yeah, the reason I brought it up is like, if they're thrashing the house already and they know that the airplane is what brings the people,
hmm
if the airplane was left overnight, I would suspect that the plane would also be thrashed. So I was kind of like, did they fly in and leave, or did they fly in and like the pilot stayed with them and then they left? Or I would assume
Right.
they would probably not stick around with a plane because pricey.
Right. Probably not.
I missed the portion of that because you froze a bit, Mel. But I'm assuming you were talking about why they didn't trash the airplane, maybe? Or
Yes.
yeah, that's a good question. I thought about that. I don't have an answer for that. Maybe here's my like a thought. Like the airplane would have originally, I guess, landed in the water in the middle of the lake or whatever. But
Mhm.
I'm assuming they had some sort of pontoon system for um, like a jetty almost. You know what I mean? Like where you would be able to park your plane and then walk along this.
Yeah, like a dock or something.
Thank you. That's the word. I was like, jetty is a word they use in Italy for like their boats and things. And but yes, like a dock, right?
Mm.
That would, and I'm maybe they're not a fan of water, or maybe they are a fan of water, maybe they don't like having their footing wobbly. Who knows, right? There's lots of different variations or variables or whatever, right? So
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, because anytime I've heard about a Bigfoot or Sasquatch sighting, they're usually in the woods. They're not, or walking around the border of a marsh or
yep,
something. They're
yeah,
not
and they're
in.
not in it, right? So and
Yeah.
like I said, I have no, I don't claim to be an expert. I just kind of find the cool stories and share them. So
They're like cats. They don't like being wet.
It's
yeah,
possible.
yeah, 100%.
Carl, did you have any questions for Alex about his story?
No, I think like as always, you've painted a picture for us.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I try with my plain black background.
I think the only thing that I can maybe, so I know that we've talked about the rock and up on the roof and how they would have to throw it up there.
Mhm.
Playing basketball, if I wanted to get something up high, I would have underhanded it.
Right.
Could that be a possibility that a bear may have like been playing with this thing on the ground and then underhanded instead of overhanded?
I mean, just from what I know of bears, having seen a bear, not being a bear expert, I don't know if they have that kind of range because their arms are short. So I don't know if they have that kind of range from like the
Yeah.
middle portion, and like would they be standing on their hind legs and then pick up this rock and then kind of I don't know.
Okay.
I
I
mean, if we do it, we have to kind of really arch our
Yeah,
back in a weird way. I feel
right.
like physiologically speaking, a bear might not have that range of motion just simply because it's not something that he's usually doing.
And we have like really long arms to be able to kind of like I used the term earlier, trebuchet, right? Like kind of
Mhm.
fling it, right? But I don't
Yeah.
know. I could see if it had it in one hand, maybe, but I don't
Mhm.
know if they could cross their torso. You know what I mean? Like to the point where you
Right.
grab a rock and then bring it down and fling it up. I don't know.
Mhm.
It's a good question. I'll have to ask a bear expert one day when I find one.
Right? Like,
Hey,
yeah.
I mean, why not? Do you think a bear could yeet a volleyball-sized boulder onto a roof?
Tuned to ParaMindful for that day when I do find that bear expert, and then I will do an update.
We'll find a special guest for Paramindful. And that being said, Carl, let's move on to your story because you said that all three of our stories are kind of loosely connected here.
They are very, very similar in accounts and things that have happened. Mine is coming from Wild Goose Lake in Northern Ontario. Comes from 1982 with a retired dairy farmer known as William, or affectionately by his friends known as Bill Webster. He was moose hunting near Wild Goose, and he says that he had a Sasquatch in the crosshairs of his rifle. So his experience actually began when he grunted into his moose call because he was out moose hunting, right? And something weird happened. He heard what sounded like a club being swung downwards onto either like the ground or onto something by what he thought was a large animal hidden in the bushes. This is his words. He says this huge club came smashing down through the brush, and you can imagine how amazed I was. It was a good sized limb. If it had hit me, I would surely not be here. I could see a small amount of black hair through the brush. Black hair like a bear, but it was higher than my head. I took the safety off my 308 and held it where his chest would be if required to shoot, and I stood frozen. Something that I'm finding very interesting about really all of these accounts as well is that anyone who has seen or witnessed a Sasquatch, Bigfoot, Yeti, I don't care what you've seen, they all don't seem to be very aggressive. As Bill says, that this thing just kind of got up and started walking away quietly. It also threw rocks. So while this thing is walking away, apparently 5 bigger rocks were thrown at him, and he had to retreat to the road. He couldn't stay in the bush any longer because he feared actually being hit by one of these large rocks.
Hmm.
He began walking down the logging road, and it was starting to get warm, as usually does when you're outside, and it starts to, sun starts to come up. It started getting warm for him, and he reached up to unbutton the top button of his shirt, and he says that this thing came right out in front of him. Says that he had the telescope of his rifle sighted at his vertebrae and could have downed him easily, but he just couldn't do it. Instead, he hollered at this Sasquatch, to see its face, to get it to turn around so that he could see its face, but it never did turn around. Said that it was about 7 or 8 feet tall. Its legs were short, but its arms were actually long. They hung down to this thing's legs. Shoulders were wide. The sides of the neck went straight up to the head. The head was rounded. It was dark, not jet black, but sort of a brownish black, which very similar to both of the accounts here as well. And that the hair was not really long. It was only about 1 or 2 inches, kind of like a dog, not really shaggy on it. It walked on 2 upright feet, just like a person would. He could see its feet, or he couldn't see his face, but he could see it walking away from him. And it walked slowly, like it didn't have any care in the world and was just nonchalantly going about its business. He decided not to take the shot at this animal because kind of occurred to him that it's his land,
Yeah.
not mine. Right? Totally understandable.
Yeah.
So as soon as he saw this thing leave and go, he actually backtracked from where he first saw the animal and was able to find footprints or tracks. Said that the tracks were at least a foot long and had 5 toes, just like a human. But instead they were square. They weren't, you know how like ours, kind of like this, they'll go down. Yeah,
Right.
no, it was perfectly squared. So everything was
Gorilla.
right. And that's why I'd said to you earlier, Mel, before we came on, I'm like, don't tell me, don't say anything, because I wanted to see if you had that same type of similar account in the imprints that you had found as well. So that's his story at least. But
That-
again, it's remarkable the consistency of reports that we have from eyewitnesses, that are drawing all the same conclusion, the same compelling figure, the same story of a human shaped mammal that's being observed. And it's happening, for us at least, in this episode, all across North America.
So it's very, very interesting. That might be actually one of the best stories I've heard besides the Sierra Sounds story.
Mm,
I really like that story for so many little reasons, but particularly the detail. So
right.
the stories that we hear take that what is it the actual like Bigfoot video that Gimlin Patterson took, because there's so many things about that people are arguing. Anyways, that one
Right.
aside, everybody always talks about how there's no very clear neck. There's like a bodybuilder almost, right?
Yeah.
Like Ishi.
What's
Yeah.
that?
As a wrestler.
Oh, fair enough. But they always talk about how the arms aren't proportionate. They're longer and they go to like mid thigh almost.
Hmm.
And I find that really, really interesting that was in that story from 82. 82?
82. Yes.
82. Also the fur. So there's been people obviously who have tried to hoax a million times, and they're always using these suits that are like a werewolf suit or whatever, right? Where it's got this really, really long fur, but consistently people who claim to see Bigfoot, I don't know if you noticed that, but that was Mel's screen that flickered and then my screen that flickered.
Yep.
My screen flickered again. What?
When we start talking controversial stuff,
That
that's
was
what happens.
that was super weird. So
Welcome to ParaMindful. There he goes.
normally
There he is.
joke about that, but like that's legit. That
Yeah.
was bizarre.
Oh,
Anyways,
Lord have mercy.
I just lost it's the little nuances. Carl did it. What the? Anyways, the fur consistently people say that it's not short as in like a buzz cut, but it's like 1 to 2 inches. It's not like
Yeah.
not like a Highland cow kind of hair where it's like very, very long and kind of curly and stuff.
I
It's-
want one.
It's like, yeah, me too. It's designed effectively to be like perfect for bush bush living, right? Because you don't get stuck on any, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So that's why I always have a little bit of an issue when people are like, "Oh, we found hair of Bigfoot." I'm like, I don't know, man. The hair that you have is like 4 inches long. I don't. Yeah,
Yeah.
but
Mm-hmm.
that was a really great story. I really liked that one, and that was very compelling to me.
Right.
So, but the other thing I was going to mention is the amount of stories that I hear of people who have had this thing in their sight, or like their gun sight, or have had a weapon on them and have thought, no, I'm not shooting this thing. This thing's too human, or this thing isn't out to hurt me. This thing hasn't done anything aggressive. But it's usually the point where it's just like it looked too human for me to shoot. Like, it gives me goosebumps just talking about this.
Right.
Again, lots of things do, but apparently this one's weird. It's like shivers through the whole body. But it's always that I can't shoot this because there's something here. There's something. What's the word I'm looking for? Like sentient, I guess. You know what I mean? It's not like, I'm not saying bears don't know what's going on, but it's just like something. It's like I would never want to kill a dolphin because we all know dolphins are extremely intelligent, or a whale, they're extremely intelligent. This,
Right.
to me, is like on that level where it's like we're here, and I feel like these things are here. The dolphins are here, and Sasquatch, Bigfoot's like up here somewhere. You know?
Mm-hmm.
And that's exactly what Bill had said too. Like he actually said that this thing was not savage at all, and he felt that the animal had more right to be here than he did.
Yeah,
So
it's
that's
all.
why he didn't shoot it.
Yeah, it's also interesting that they just kind of walk away and they're like, forget it. You know what I mean? It's like they know that we're not going to do anything.
Mm-hmm.
Or maybe they implanted the memory in our head to be like, hey, you know what? Or the thought, I should say, like, hey, don't do this. But
Right.
it's like, it's either they're not used to humans, which I highly doubt, and they're like, oh, he can't hurt me. But it's just like they know they could completely destroy us because they're massive, and they're like, fuck them, I'm out of here. You know, and they just
Well,
sort of,
not the females, at
Brontosaurus.
least. Females is only 200 pounds. Yeah. Yeah, I could take it.
that's right.
Could we though? Oh man.
Anyways, I just thought that was a great story. I really like that one.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So I really wish that I remembered what documentary this was, but during COVID, I did happen to come across in my random YouTube dishevelment. I did come across a documentary of a gentleman who was a former, um, what was he? He was a Marine, U.S. Marine, and he actually investigated Bigfoot as a hobby because he just truly believed in them, and he was one of those deep woods hiker guys. I really wish I could find this video for you guys because it ties into the aggression side of it. Because he would go in there and encounter these things and he would film them and you could see them peeking out from behind the tree. But I say them because there was more than one. There was usually 3 or 4. And he was constantly saying that they were adolescents, that they were young. And that's why they were acting aggressive towards him because the adolescents, they're being like typical children.
Yeah,
They're waiting until night, they're sneaking out, they're running into the woods to see who's out there, to see what kind of, teenage adolescency. I mean, I'm sure they don't drink and smoke like we do, but like maybe the game to them is teasing humans,
yeah.
because he never said that he encountered an adult one. The adult ones are the ones that want to stay away from us.
Or
Whereas the adolescents are like testing fate.
maybe they're just really curious and they don't know to not be completely terrified. It's just like, I don't know, if like a kid throwing a rock at a bee's nest kind of thing, like, hey, let's see what happens, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So maybe they are solitary. Maybe there's like he was convinced that there was a colony of them
That's my
hiding in our Rocky Mountains outside of Canmore.
I have, and this is kind of taken away a little bit. Remember I just mentioned Melba Ketchum, Dr. Melba Ketchum?
Yeah.
I just got some information about her. So she is a Texas veterinarian, a doctor, She graduated from, I want to say it was Texas A&M, but I don't know for sure. I can't be for certain. But she started what's known as the Sasquatch Genome Project. So that was the name that they gave it after they had done all the, because she didn't want to put, she actually changed her name, to be honest with you, because she didn't want her old stuff to be confused with this stuff and be like, oh, yeah, she's trying to get something, right?
Makes sense.
So she found that it was the result of she believes the result of mating with modern human females about 15,000 years ago, the math that she had done or the science or whatever. Yeah, it's pretty interesting stuff. She had signed an NDA, so non-disclosure agreement, for a long while. Yeah, it's pretty crazy. But yeah. The study was from 2012 is when it started, and she had a team of scientists, and they confirmed the existence of a novel hominin hybrid species. And she said it's commonly referred to as a Bigfoot or as a Sasquatch living in North America. That's quote unquote what she said. So what a novel hominin hybrid species is. So a hominid is a human type species, and novel means that it's brand new. So it's not never discovered before. So I thought that was really, really cool. So, and I guess you can tell by the, I don't know what the technical term would be, but like the watered downness of certain genomes.
Oh, okay.
That it was probably around 15,000 years ago where they started mating, and this kind of like branch came off. So, yes, here it is. She's got her doctorate in veterinary medicine from the Texas A&M. So Texas A&M is Texas. I want to say it's agriculture and mining. It's a university. So
I
yeah,
think you're correct.
very
Yeah.
good one. So yeah. So I just thought I'd share that, just kind of like, so I'm not throwing out random names and people are like, what the hell?
She is real. She exists.
Melba Ketchup? What? So
Right.
it's I find it very compelling because she has no reason to lie. In fact, a lie would completely destroy anything she's ever done, DNA wise. So I don't know for sure if she's ever done whatever, say tests on some sort of criminal or something, but it would always throw that stuff in question as well. So just like she put her whole doctorate effectively on this. So
Right.
so cool.
So my final question to you guys then is, if that's the case, and we're discovering things, and there could be a novel, hominin out there, why would people fight so hard to keep it a secret? Why would we sit there and devalue this woman's hard work and dedication to this? What are we hiding? What are we missing? Carl, what do you think?
I have a theory, and I don't think it involves. Sorry, I should say I think it involves government, but I don't think it involves it as we would think it does. I am under the assumption, the belief, I should say, that the certain portions of the government absolutely know everything that's going on. I fully believe that.
Yeah.
I think people are genuinely scared to believe something that we don't know exists. However, if you look at the silverback gorilla has only been known for what, like 120 years or something like that. It's a relatively new creature. There was, for years and years and years, they were like, oh, there's something living in the mountains that looks like a man, but it's not a man. And then they found it. You know what I mean? Like it's not beyond the realm of possibilities.
Right.
Especially if you think this thing that lives in the bush is a master of its craft of bush tactics, if you will, right? Camouflage, hunting, whether it buries its dead or whatever it does with its dead. I assume it buries them, but you know what I mean? Like there's too much evidence to negate the fact that it doesn't exist. Now, I need more evidence to say it's exactly this, but there's too much evidence to prove that it doesn't. Sorry, to prove that it doesn't. Too much evidence to prove to me that it exists. There's way too much on that side of the fence, as opposed to saying it doesn't exist, it's not real.
Right.
Because we're not talking about relatively new information. We're talking like indigenous tribes, and we're talking about Inuits up north. We're talking about the Nepalese people from Nepal. They're everywhere, it's, and if you can get that many old cultures all talking about effectively the same thing, how does that work? There's no internet 400 years ago.
That's true.
Text messages didn't work back then.
Paper and bird.
That's right. Pigeons, homing pigeons. So that's my thought. I don't know what you guys believe, but I think there's something, and I think certain branches of the government, I would be surprised if the like the forest ranger group or whatever, you know what I mean? I would be surprised if they
Oh,
didn't.
the forest rangers are a whole nother ParaMindful episode that we need to do.
I'd be surprised if like the Department of whatever forestry or whatever didn't know that they existed. I'd be very surprised.
Right.
Carl, what do you think about that?
I'll sum it up with 4 words: fear of the unknown.
I mean, at some point, we need to grow the hell up, though.
Right? I mean, think about it.
Society.
I want to be able to find a Sasquatch so that I can go up to it, give it a gold freaking medal, because the Sasquatch is the number 1 in hide and seek.
Hide and seek, for sure.
Seriously.
Yeah. If I can say one more thing, if you think about the quantity of money that we'll just use the American government in itself, that the American government makes off of tourism to national parks, it's insane. But can you imagine the 50-50 chance of like, oh yeah, by the way, there's big feet that live in that forest and we don't know if they're aggressive or whatever. How many people wouldn't go, or how many people would go? It's a 50-50, like, oh shit, we don't want to lose any money. But then it also goes into play where it's just like, well, all those people who are religious and those religious groups, say Catholicism or whatever, now they have to be open to the thought that other things might exist, right? And it's just recently that the Roman Catholic Church has been like, oh yeah, well, we believe that there could be aliens because we can't put a limit on God's creations, which is a very blanket statement to be like, yeah, there's probably other things that we know they exist because we're the Catholic Church and we know everything.
Right.
So, but that's the thing, is just, why would you mess with the golden cow? You're getting in huge quantities of money. Would you risk people being afraid to go in the bush or go camping or whatever in your national parks?
I mean, yeah. No hesitation, because look at what's happening in the national parks. We're doing a series on missing 411. Do we want to just throw out there that we think that the Sasquatches are already abducting people?
I don't think it's them that's abducting.
There's other things out there that I think are far more dangerous than the Sasquatch and Bigfoot to us that 100%. We need to be more concerned about.
But Sasquatch is a tangible, physical thing, right? It's not like a portal that's opening, right? It's a tangible creature. And when you think about like, oh, I wouldn't go into the Sundarbans in India because whatever, it's like 100,000 people have been eaten by tigers in the last 100 years. You know what I mean? Like, I personally would never go to the Sundarbans because I don't want to get eaten by a tiger. Doesn't mean that they're going to eat me anytime I go there. But
well, like, you have to just pick your partners good, man. You pick the small one like me. They're going to take me out before they take you.
Are you sure though? Because I look like a fuck of a bigger meal than you.
Yeah, but I'm the smaller, weaker one.
The cheeks on me, man. Delicious.
A predator is not going to take out the alpha, my guy. They're going to find the little one.
Thank you so much for calling me an alpha. I appreciate that.
Both of you guys are taller than me. Both of you guys are more muscly than me. I mean, I'm trying, man, but I am 5'3" and I have zero survival skills. If something wants to muck me up, if it's a duck, it's probably going to muck me up.
That's because we have cobra chickens here.
Yeah.
We do.
Yeah.
We do have cobra chickens, and they are vicious.
For those Americans out there, Google cobra chickens. You'll understand.
Oh, they already know. We send them there for the winter.
They just call them geese. They're Canadian geese. Thank you very much.
And that being said, we should probably wrap this up because we only have 5 more minutes and Twitch is twitchy. So, Carl, the gold standard, my friend, can you point to where your link tree is going to show up? And just briefly describe what we can expect to see the gold standard on in the next coming week.
Monday Night Raw watch along, hopefully, as long as I'm not working. Tuesday night Turnbuckle Talk. ParaMindful coming soon is going to be season 3 of Beats and Beatdowns, and another music show coming out with myself and Bobby Munson.
Exciting. Bobby and you have been putting out a lot of good content. Bobby is just working so dang hard, that guy.
What does Bobby do for a living besides this? Do we know?
I believe he does sales.
What's that, sorry?
I believe he does sales.
Oh, sales, fair enough. I was like, I don't know if you want to say it out loud on.
He does do work
Bobby.
outside.
No, I know for sure, but I'm just kind of wondering where the time comes from. Like, is he a magician?
He is.
Yeah, must be.
Bobby's a magician.
We got 3 minutes and 15 seconds.
Alex, where can we find you?
YouTube. Werewolf at the Movies. Wait You Can. It probably won't be there. It'll be Werewolf at the Movies and Wait You Can, both on YouTube. One of them is movie reviews, which I have not made in almost a year because life gets really, really busy. And Wait You Can is kind of like a catch-all for a lot of different things. So I got something else in the works, but I'll go from there when the time is right. So
Spoiler alert.
YouTube channel? I don't know.
Uh-oh. And hopefully Alex will make all of Malball's stuff show up here or somewhere down there.
Probably down in that corner right there.
Okay.
Nice
Where are we pointing? We're voguing now.
I don't know. I'm just trying to move out of the way of all of them stacking down over top of my face.
I try to keep all our faces in them. I try to move it around us so that we're not covered up, but
Bubbles.
that's me.
Anyway,
me and my
You
editing.
can catch a Melball on OLE's ParaMindful. Obviously, you can catch me on Andre and Melball's Wrestling Talk on YouTube, dropping videos probably every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday soon, because good golly, Miss Molly, we got 2 major tournaments coming up in NJPW and Stardom. Melball's not going to be sleeping. We also want to shout out our sponsor, Rogue Energy Drink, as I pull up our information on it here. It is an amazing energy drink that has 0 caffeine, 0 sugar, 0 calories, lots of vitamins, gluten-free, soy-free. It's 100% vegan. They also have protein as well as hydration. Carl, do you have the amazing little video set up for all of the amazing flavors that Rogue Energy has for us?
I sure do. That is going to be on your screen right now.
I love that video. It's always so bougie. I feel fancy when it plays. And of course, don't forget to use the promo code OLEPods to get 10% off your first order there. Carl, you have something to say about our amazing ParaMindful merchandise.
Very quickly, check the ticker down below, carlcarafel.redbubble.com. There is ParaMindful merchandise available for you there.
Excellente. And that being said, I am your Melball. Over there is the werewolf, and down there is the gold standard. We will see you next time. Keep her spooky.
Love you guys.